Welcome back to the Good Success Podcast. I am your host, Josh Culler. And I got Tom Olson, president of Good Success, with me right here. And he's not wearing his Good Success gear, but that's because it's really cold outside and you look really warm. So it's actually pretty cold in this office, but I think it'll warm up.
It's cold outside.
Right. So we don't want to break into song or anything, but just so you guys know. But we got somebody on the show. I'm not even gonna say his name just because he's wearing something that we're not in totally agreement with. So
seriously,
I mean, he did this on purpose. What in the world, man? We let you on our show and you wear a Packers hat before they wish for. So awesome. So we got Derek Dombeck out of Wittenburg, Wisconsin, which he said is right outside of Wausau. Is that how you say it? Is Wausau? Okay,
yeah,
cool.
Yep.
Close enough, right? So he said to say that because Wittenberg is a very small town. Hardly anybody knows where it is. So, but we got Derek, and Derek, it is awesome to have you on the show, regardless of you wearing a Packers hat. But it's great to have you on the show. We look forward to going through this with you.
Well, I appreciate you guys having me. It's we met between having a mutual friend, and I look forward to meeting you guys in person very soon.
Absolutely. So, like you said, we are friends. We are all friends of Mo Matthews, which Mo is a very hard person to get a hold of. Granted that he travels all the time, so at some point we'll have him on the podcast.
I can get a hold of him.
Well, he texts me back, but it's just his schedule. It's hard to get him on a podcast recording.
All right, Josh, so, I'm going to get Mo Matthews on the podcast.
Make it happen, please.
I'll make it happen right now.
Make it happen.
Okay.
Make him schedule it with us because we need to have Mo on the podcast. There's been so many people on this podcast that know Mo.
Yeah.
But great stuff. So friend of Mo's, friend of ours. So Derek, like I said, is out of Wittenberg, Wisconsin, president of Avid. Is Avid or Avid? Avid. Okay. Avid Trader. And then founder of Central Wisconsin RIA. And then him and his partner founded the Green Bay RIA as well. I feel like I got to wash my mouth out every time I say those two words. But anyway, so we're happy to have him on the show, and we're going to get into that in just a second. But before we do, if you guys haven't already, make sure you have subscribed to the Good Success Podcast. We're on Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, Spotify, all the podcast platforms. Just go search for us, and you'll find us there. Leave a review on Apple Podcasts if you would be willing to. We would much appreciate that. And then the Good Success Mastermind, which we've talked to Derek about, and hopefully he's going to be coming to that very soon. But our next event is February 4 through 8 in Dallas, Texas at Quest Trust Company's office down there. They're kind enough to host us. We're excited about it. It's going to be a great full week. We're splitting into two groups, group 1, group 2. And then the middle day, everybody's together, and we're going to have some awesome stuff. One of the things that's going to happen on day 2 is the weigh-in between you. We've had Jeremiah Rose and Matt Durand on the podcast a couple weeks ago.
I think Mo's afraid to be on this podcast.
I think he might be.
I'm going to call him out right now. He's afraid to be on this podcast because Jeremiah might show him up.
That's right.
That's what I'm saying.
We don't know. I mean, Jeremiah is out there a lot right now and showing his progress, but Mo, I haven't heard from him.
He looks like he's lost 50 pounds already.
Ooh. All right, so that's what's going to happen on the middle day. We're going to have a weigh-in to see. So in the November mastermind, health has been a big topic, and Jeremiah and Mo are both pretty big guys, and they've wanted to get their weight under control, and so they decided, this time we're just going to face off against each other, and whoever loses the most percentage of weight wins, and the loser of that contest has to dance in a coconut bra and grass skirt in front of the entire group. So it's going to be great. I don't know if that's a turnoff to some people, but it's one of those things like you don't want to see it, but you really do. And
you don't want to miss it.
You don't want to miss that, right? Especially if it's Mo, right? That's so anyway. But if you guys want to learn more about
Who's picking the song for that? That's all I got to say.
I don't know.
We got to figure out.
Maybe we could get John Morey in here to pick a salsa song or something like that. Yeah, that'd be fun.
Maybe.
But if you guys
maybe Derek can give us a song.
Derek can give us. They don't dance in Green Bay, man. They don't.
That's right. You're right.
Right, something like that.
We're dancing, but it's usually while we're carrying a couple beers.
That's right. That's right. So if you guys want to learn more about the mastermind, just go to goodsuccess.com/mastermind. Fill out the application there, and then you'll get on a phone call with me or Tom, and then we vet you through the core values that we have: community growth, stewardship, and charity. Yes, absolutely your business, but also the type of human being you are. I did the same process with Derek, got on the phone with him after he filled out the application. We talked for a while and got to know each other very well. So great stuff. So one more time, goodsuccess.com/mastermind is where you can do that. And then the Active Turnkey book, The Best Way to Buy Rentals. This is going away very, very soon. You guys don't have a lot more time For free is how much you could pick this up for, but pretty soon it's going to be listed on Amazon. We're going to be cutting off the free plus shipping offer, but you can still take advantage of that. Go to atkbook.com. Best way to buy rentals by Tom Olson himself. He's paying for the book. All you guys got to do is cover shipping and handling costs, and we'll get it shipped out to you. So one more time, it's going away. It's going to be on Amazon for sale, and we're not doing this free plus shipping offer for this book specifically. We'll do it for another one, but not for this one. So you guys make sure you take advantage of that and pick it up for free. And then the Community Go-Giver event is coming up June 26, 27, 28. Early bird pricing's already going on right now. Full event details to come out very soon, so be on the lookout for that. But again, you can go pick up some early bird pricing on that. Save a couple $100, and all you gotta do is go to communitygogiver.com to learn more about that. We have some information on there already, and I think we have a promotional video and whatnot from the last event, which was our inaugural event. Some great stuff, some returning speakers from last year, and Tom's put together an incredible lineup. You guys aren't going to want to miss it. So, Tom, give us a brief description of this.
I would love for everyone that can possibly come make it to the Community Go Giver event to be there in our office, which is kind of cool to have everybody in our office. It's kind of hard to say in my office because most people don't think of an office like we have here. We actually have what looks like at some point might have been some kind of an auditorium. It's actually right in our office. It's really cool. But I love expressing and telling people what we're doing here with flipping the entire city of Gary, Indiana, and how we're focusing on what a positive impact it's having on the community and how you can do the same thing, either working with us or in your neck of the woods in your area around the country.
Awesome stuff. So you guys can take advantage of the early bird pricings. Go to communitygogiver.com and save a couple $100. So without further ado, let's get into this podcast interview. We got some great information here. It was very interesting talking to Derek just because of the nature of the market that he's in. He has to get very creative with the stuff that he does in real estate investing. So we're going to learn a lot about that today. But before we get into it, Derek, do us a favor for the people that don't know who you are. Brief introduction, who you are, what you do, some of your background and experience in real estate.
Well, I was born and raised in central Wisconsin, which is essentially a very small market compared to what a lot of your listeners are going to be coming from. And my wife and I, we started our investing journey back in 2003, built up a very large portfolio very quickly, and then fast forward a few years, we lost a very large portfolio very quickly. And what that forced us to do is either quit or come out of the corner swinging. And everybody kind of knows or can picture what we went through. I guess I didn't think of it as a blessing back then, but now I see it. It's the reason that I'm as good at creative deal structuring as I am, because I can sit across the kitchen table from somebody and literally look them in the eye and say, I know how you feel if they're in any kind of financial turmoil. So we took that and started growing. And when I met my current business partner about 7 years ago, he had a financial or a different background as a hard money lender that I didn't have. So we merged our two companies together, and I've always been that hands-on construction type, and he's not. He's more of the IT background, the lending, stuff like that, and it's been a very good partnership and almost a marriage. I hesitate to say that, but that's really what it is, right? And our two markets where we live are about 80 to 90 miles apart. So we're not in each other's backyard, and we're not in each other's back pocket either, which has some very good benefits to it as well as some challenges. But we actually cover about a 200-mile diameter market. And the majority of what we're doing business in is cities anywhere from 10,000 population up to, Green Bay with all the suburbs, 250,000 people. But it's definitely different than if we were in Atlanta or Chicago or New York or pick any big city, right? So I feel like there's a big difference in how you market, how you approach people, how you build a name for yourself and protect that name, because good news travels fast, but bad news travels faster, right? And we can certainly expand on that if you'd like to.
Yeah, absolutely. So let's go into, staying on this topic, let's go into the market. So for you specifically, you talked about how your market expands out to about 200-mile radius, including the Green Bay area, which is probably the biggest actual city that you have business in. So let's talk about combating a small market, because there might be some listeners out there that are in small markets and are struggling a little bit maybe. There are obviously a lot of listeners that are in the big markets, so Atlanta, Dallas, Miami, Chicago, stuff like that. But for the people out there that maybe even want to, another instance is Dallas is saturated, so maybe people want to get out of Dallas and go into smaller markets. What are the pros? What are the cons? Some things that you've experienced with going into smaller markets?
I think 100% the pros are we have very little competition. When we do any kind of direct marketing, or let's just say a mailer, people aren't getting 20 of them. They're getting one or two. Our conversion rates are very high compared to the national averages on any kind of that type of direct marketing approaches. We can have our Google AdWords campaign that we run, and our price per click is quite low compared to what most people would endure in a larger city. And quite honestly, it's a small town mentality, and you can sit down and talk to somebody face to face and not necessarily have to worry, is there another investor coming through their door an hour after you leave, or was there one an hour before you got there? And I think that that's a really big pro. The cons are you also don't have a lot of other people that are active to wholesale to or to turn products over to. And so when we start marketing in a big city versus a small city, we're going to take less of a shotgun approach, and we're going to really be targeting certain leads. A large city, you may be able to just pound 10, 15, 20,000 letters a month and see what comes in the door. We typically can do about 1,000 to 2,000 letters a month, and we're covering our entire area and have a very, very good conversion rate.
Gotcha.
So,
all right.
But to I guess cap that off, what does work in a small town will work in a big city, but what works in a big city may not work in a small town, if that makes sense.
Yeah, absolutely. So being in the Green Bay market, which is, not a huge market, but it's probably the biggest market that you're in there, with marketing. So you just mentioned what works in a big market may not work in a smaller market. What are some of those things that you've done marketing wise to combat that situation?
Well, again, we target, for one thing, we target probates. We don't have the sheer numbers that you would have because of population, right? So instead of just mailing a letter, we may go door knock. We may go approach them face to face. And in a larger city, I don't see a lot of people doing that, right? They're just going to shotgun it and see what comes across. So that's a little bit more time consuming, but it has a lot higher conversion rate.
Yeah, I think sometimes people forget the value of one deal. So maybe you have to spend a whole lot more time to get that one deal than you might have to spend if you're doing the shotgun approach. But if you can actually go direct and actually make a relationship, connect with that person, your chances of that conversion is so much greater that I've been working with Manny to do the exact same thing in our office. And we're kind of more like in between those markets. Yes, we're Chicagoland, we're outside of that city, but we're kind of just right outside of Chicago. But for instance, we probably only have, I think, 50 probate leads in our county. Okay. So I mean that you may not be able to do all of those door knock, but you could do 15 of those in a month and be able to have a really high percentage. If you just converted 2 of those, that's a great time. A great return on your time.
Absolutely, and that's the other side of it is our marketing dollars go a lot farther if we're only targeting 100 or 200 properties at a time. And yes, it takes more physical time, but to me it's a better way given what we have to deal with. And the other side of that, when we get into the creative deal structuring, I can honestly say I only know 2 or 3 other people in the upper 2/3 of the entire state that do anything subject to options, lease options, things of that nature. I've spoken at other RIAs on these topics just to teach and educate. And the majority of the people that attend these meetings don't have, even if they've heard of it, they don't understand how to implement it.
So can you drill down into some of those other creative ways that you are? So you're talking about you're buying creatively, right?
Typically, we're buying creatively. I mean, we'll buy the boring way too, all cash. But I truly get pleasure out of helping people, and typically, if I can solve their problem, right, in a creative manner, it's good for us and it's good for them. Everyone else is just going in and making their cash offer, and that's the only tool in their tool belt. They're not helping that individual with the problem.
So Derek, go ahead and go into that. So when we were on the phone, you had talked about, so this is going into my next question, so I'm glad we brought this up, the creative deal structures. You talked about the deal that you did with the farmer, with that whole land. That's a perfect example of what we're talking about here. So maybe just go into that'd be great.
Okay, so it goes back 4 years ago when we got the original phone call off of a free marketing piece that we run. This farmer called me and asked if we buy anything other than houses. And I said, absolutely, case by case basis, what do you have? And he said, well, I'm in foreclosure. I've already gone through a bankruptcy to stop the foreclosure. I'm losing my farm, and it's a dairy farm. And I'm looking for somebody that would be willing to buy my farm and then lease it back to us. Well, in which circumstances is that a good idea? Very few, right? And most people would have hung up the phone at that point. But by asking just a couple more questions, he made a comment and said, if I wasn't in this agricultural program, which is designed to keep the property in ag use, and they save on property taxes, he said, if I wasn't in this ag program, I could buy myself out of my trouble, which of course led me to ask how or why. And there's literally millions of yards of sand underneath his field on his farm, which can be taken out and mined and sold, and he cannot do it because of the ag program he's in. So it took a lot of moving parts and a long time to get it closed, but the short version is we were able to go in and short sale the two lenders that were foreclosing, and we were able to purchase the property, get it permitted to turn 50 acres of their farm into a mineral quarry. And the rest of the farm, the house, the buildings, they're still there. They're milking cows. And we then put a contract together with them where over a period of time, once we've taken out an agreed upon amount of minerals, we will give them their farm free and clear for $1. And we structured the entire thing with all private capital, which for us is just another leg of our business. So when you look at it, the whole thing involved a short sale, two short sales, private investors, a lease and some options, another lease to a contractor who was actually operating the quarry, because I didn't tell you this part, Josh, but we just get a royalty. This is hands off. Every scoop of sand that goes into a dump truck, I get a royalty off of. So it's pure mailbox money. And in the end, these farmers will have their family-owned property for their kids with a 50-acre lake, because as soon as we shut off the drainage, this hole will fill up. So they will then have waterfront property. So, but most people would have just hung up the phone.
Nobody thinks about that stuff. Yeah.
Right. So that's just one of our favorite deals that we've done, but it just involved a lot of different questions and asking more and more questions and trying to get to what the root of the problem was and what they really truly needed, right? As investors, we know what we need. It's a certain ROI. So it doesn't even pay for us to talk about what we need to a seller. It's really what do they need and how can we get it for them? Yeah. That's our philosophy.
That's awesome. Great. And so what's beautiful about this conversation is that Derek understands that he's working for the customer. Yeah. So he's there to serve the customer, to be a good steward of what the knowledge and connections that he's been given by God to be able to help somebody else's situation or whatever it is that they're in. He's not in it just to make a buck. So, when we at Good Success talk about be a conduit, not a bucket, or work to have to give and have charity in what you're doing and love people and that community is who you love and you want to get better at doing it every single day, but really being that steward of the opportunities, the money, and the knowledge that you've been given is a great example of what he's doing here.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's the answer to my next question is exactly what you just said. So, but maybe Derek, you have something else as well.
I'm sorry, Josh. I
No,
didn't know what your next question was going to be.
You're good. That was a clean conversation, perfect segue. But so why should people think outside the box when it comes to building these deals like this? Like, obviously for you, it might be that there's lack of inventory, so you kind of have to get creative with your deals and making sure that, you know, things work. But like, what are some reasons why people should think outside the box and make these type of deals happen?
Well, and I'll address one thing right from the beginning. There's plenty of deal flow, and so we still get whatever we want to get as far as the boring way of buying all cash. Sure. But that's not what gets me out of bed in the morning. I truly want these types of deals that nobody else can solve their problem. And as far as outside the box, we actually don't believe in a box. If you don't believe in a box, if there is no box, that means anything is possible. And that was the coin "what box," or the phrase "what box" was coined by a couple of friends of mine, and it really, I think it rings true. If you don't ever believe there is one, then you never stop looking for a solution, right? So to me, every time I get a lead, whether it's a phone call, face-to-face, whatever it is, as long as I'm doing what I believe is right for that person and trying to lead them to a solution, the boxes doesn't exist.
Sure.
See, Josh, I'm not the only person that thinks crazy like that.
Yeah, you're right. There are people out there. That's great stuff.
Yes, come on.
That's the whole vision of the community go-giver.
Well, that's the whole yeah, right. I mean, people are like, well, what do you want this to look like? I'm like, you know what? Like, it's unlimited of what this thing could look like. You know, what is good success? I'm viewing like stages with thousands and you know, of people with a world following at some point, and leave it generation, you know, leave a legacy for good success for generations. And not just that, but, you know, in our real estate, you know, game and all the things that we do, like I was at a meeting this last week with people worth hundreds of millions of dollars, and the way they think is just totally different than the way we think. And it's so true. Like, you don't have to have a box. You don't have to put yourself in a box or think that there is a box. There's always a way to get better. And if you ever get to the point where you think that you know it all, or you think that this is all you can do, like, you'll stop growing because you don't believe it's possible to grow, or you don't believe that you need to grow. And that's a great point. I love that talk with just acquiring houses. You know, it's the same mindset and it's the same concept.
Yeah. Well, and I think the other part of it, Tom, is if you put yourself inside this box and you don't use the gifts you were given, right? You're actually harming people by not using what you were given by God to help. Mm-hmm. And I think that so many people, and it's just fear, 9 times out of 10. Nobody's doing it maliciously. Nobody's saying, well, I know how to help people, but I'm making a conscious decision not to. But that's really what you're doing. If somebody calls me and I can solve their problem, I believe it's my obligation to help them solve their problem. Mm-hmm. And yes, we do need to be profitable. We need to keep, you know, our families fed as well. But that comes as a byproduct of helping people. Mm-hmm. If you help enough people, you will make the money you need to make to support your family.
Absolutely.
That's what we believe in.
I always say that there's 3 things that will stop people. It's either fear, which, like you said, is what stops most people. But it's fear, it's pride, which that pride comes into every one of our lives every day. Sometimes we got to always push that down. And 3, simply laziness. If one of those things are stopping you, if you're not getting to where you want to get to, it's one of those 3 things that's not allowing you to be able to be that conduit.
Yeah. Absolutely. And all 3 of those things could play into everything, this whole conversation, because if you're prideful, it could say, well, I don't want to deal with these people because they're just not worth my time. I got to put all this, you know, all this creative deal structures together, and it's just not worth my time. And then laziness, it plays into that as well. So absolutely love that.
If you're just home at playing video games all day, you're probably not really going to accomplish much.
Right. Exactly.
You know, and I think pride makes us all prejudge people as well. Yeah. If I would prejudge that farmer and not kept the conversation going because of my own pride or my own arrogance, then not only would I not have a really great deal, I wouldn't have helped them save their family farm. Yeah. So I think Tom is spot on with pride.
Incredible. Yeah. That's awesome stuff. So along the same lines here, so learning all this stuff, that you've learned? I'm sure that you've had some sort of a mentor. I know that you're a part of a few groups. You know, with your RIA, the Green Bay RIA, and then the Central Wisconsin RIA. You had told me that you and Mo went down to a mastermind group where you guys got an Airbnb and got all together and just mastermind the whole time. Sounds like a lot of fun. But how important is mentorship? How important is networking and building relationships with people? What price tag can you put on that? What value does that bring?
I can tell you from 2003 until about 2010, other than going to trainings and seminars, my wife and I were closet investors. You know, especially when the downturn happened and we weren't doing very good, you know, we were almost like we were hiding our heads in shame. And so when I met Jeff, my current business partner, he had already been running the Green Bay RIA. That's where I met him. And that's when I kind of came out of that investor closet and started telling the whole world, here I am, and here's what I have to offer. So it grew very quickly after that to the point where I would say that through mentorship, you know, just putting ourselves out there and being vulnerable and actually asking people for help when we don't know the solution to something, we ask for help. That has taken our business astronomically to heights that we probably never imagined. And to this date now, you know, you mentioned the mastermind that I started that Mo attended. You know, that was just kind of a fluke. We were at an event. A bunch of us stayed for an extra day after this training seminar. We rented a boat and we were cruising around Tampa Bay looking, and somebody in the boat said, we should just rent a nice house and get together once in a while. And so 2 months later, we did it. We took the ball and we ran with it. And since that, and that's only been April of this year, since April to now, I can tell you that we've had 300% growth in our business.
Awesome.
Which, you know, there's no way around it. That's pretty cool. But it's because we're able to be vulnerable and help each other without feeling like there's judgment or competition or whatever you want to call it.
Sure. There's no way to put a price tag on that.
No.
And that's an abundance mindset, what you just mentioned too. That's awesome stuff. I love that. Okay, cool. So let's go back to the business and talk about the actual like deal side of it. So we've talked about creative deal structures and all the things that you can do, gave that example and everything. For you specifically, what is your favorite type of deal? And I mean, we're keeping it to your market. So what you've currently done, wholesaling, fix and flip, do you buy and hold, you know, anything like that?
This year we've gone back, we've reverted back to doing more fix and flips just because the price point on the resale has been so high. Moving forward into 2019, we're going to go back to wholesaling more of it away. Because we also run a hard money lending business, it's not uncommon for us to wholesale and then also provide the funding to who we wholesale it to. And in some cases, we like to triple dip, where we wholesale, hold the financing, and also joint venture on the tail end of the rehab. So in those cases, we can get paid 3 times on a deal. That's a lot of fun. But we're going to start holding more property in 2019. And what I really see, especially in our market, due to lack of competition, I see a lot of people that bought at the top of the market or the plateau anyways, that next 2 or 3 years, for whatever circumstances, whether it's job relocation or anything else, they're probably not going to be able to sell their houses because they went and got 3.5% down financing, you know, FHA financing. And I plan on structuring those deals where I take them either subject to or through a lease option or something. And I'm gonna use those properties and hold them long term with that 3 to 3.5% 30-year fixed financing. And I really am looking forward to it.
That's interesting. Love it. So you're changing into 2019, doing more wholesaling and then buying holds. Is that something that you've not really done much of in the past? You said you've done more fix and flips 2018. So is this kind of something new that you're going to be getting into? You done?
No. I've been landlording for 15 years. All in all, we've done we don't keep track anymore, but probably 600 transactions in 15 years. And so we've done a lot of everything. And that's another part of being a small market. You can't really just specialize in one avenue because there's not enough volume in that. If I just want to do short sales, I would starve. If I just want to do wholesaling, I would starve, right? So you do have to kind of be a jack of all trades to a certain extent, sure, to get any kind of size to your company. But we've gotten away from just straight up landlording because I really enjoy the lending side of the business now. When I started, much like most people, I thought, well, when I get to 100 units, 100 doors, that'll be my goal, right, for cash flow. Until you figure out that managing and taking care of 100 doors is a 40 to 60 hour a week job. Well, managing 100 loans that can get the same cash flow per loan can be done from your phone or your tablet anywhere in the world. So, and that's the side of the business that Jeff has kind of opened my eyes to. I would much rather manage loans that don't call you at 2 a.m. when they're locked out of their house after bar close, right? So that's why we segued out of holding property as much. The reason I plan on holding more property is when I take a property over on terms and I'm not bringing in outside money, those are the ones we'll hold long term.
Gotcha. Makes sense.
So I have a question about your market and kind of what you're doing to change your market and what your strategies are. How do you see your market? So your market's way different than a lot of different people that we talk to. And I believe that real estate has become so much more localized than it ever was in history. You kind of used to have this national market, and then we kind of created regional markets, within the last 20, 30 years. But now it's almost like the closer you get to the big cities, you find out it's like zip code by zip code. It can be block by block, street by street. But in the rural America, it's really not that way. There is kind of still like a regional market, at least from what I see in my area. If you go about 2 hours south of here, it's a completely different world. But what I saw in the 50s, 60s, 70s, and 80s is a lot of people moved out to those Terre Haute, Indiana type, areas, and they were moving out. And now it seems to me, at least that from what I can experience and what I hear around the country, is the new generation, the millennials we talk about, they don't really want that. They don't really want to go out, 2 hours from the big city. They really continually congregate closer and closer. And then when they go to college, they don't leave. They kind of stay connected to people, and they want mass transit. They want, to be connected. They want to be able to walk down and find a coffee shop. But does that mean people don't live in rural America? They absolutely are living in rural America.
It's just that trend is.
It's just that down. Trend isn't like they're not moving to it like they were, maybe 15, 20 years ago. But every market's different. So I'm always interested in kind of seeing how you see your market. Wisconsin's obviously a cold state as well. So you guys are probably colder than we are right now. I think right now. What do we got, Josh?
I'm so sorry. It's like 25, but I feel bad for you.
41. It's 41 outside.
Really? Man, that's nice. I might go outside in my t-shirt.
Yeah. So what's the temperature up there?
38.
So they're not that cool. But your trend a little colder than we get.
Yeah.
So there's kind of a trend for the population for people to move away from the cold states and kind of move more into the Southwest, especially. But how do you see your market? Are you seeing it kind of back to pre-2006 levels, higher than that? Is it kind of out of control? Obviously, Wisconsin as a whole is kind of a boring market. It's not really a very volatile market to begin with. But how is the Green Bay area and the different 200 miles worth of area that you guys cover?
So if you get into Green Bay as an example, you can cross the city without any kind of accident on the highway. You can cross the city in 15 minutes, right? So it doesn't matter as far as being inner city or millennials wanting to be in a condo right downtown where everything is, because in reality, you can get anywhere very quickly, whether it's on a bus, in your own car, on a bike. So I don't see that being a hindrance to our market. Yes, there's going to be people that want to move out of rural America that want the big city life, but I think it was Tom made a comment earlier, how many transactions or how many deals do you really need, right, to sustain a very good business? So am I worried about a trend or a market shift of millennials? No, I'm really not. If I was in Milwaukee and that was my market, which I don't play around in Milwaukee, I think that's very much like you described. right? 2 blocks can make a big difference. But in our cities, I don't really see that as being something that affects our business or will affect our business. We're flat for the most part. We've seen consistent growth over the last 8 years, 2 to 3% each year. This year, the last 18 months, we've probably seen 5 to 10% appreciation in certain suburbs or certain parts. But the only thing that really affects us in any kind of market shift is we have a lot of waterfront property, a lot of vacation homes. A lot of people from Chicago come up into Wisconsin to vacation, and that you'll see a dip, a fairly sizable dip in values and length of time it takes to sell. But otherwise, we can still buy cash flowing properties, and it's a great place. And there's definitely a lot of outside money that wants to come into the upper Midwest, especially when we start to see a market shift, because they want to park their money somewhere safe, and usually the Midwest is safe. And that's what I've seen thus far.
So let me clarify my question. Maybe I wasn't very clear. What are you particularly seeing in your market? So it sounded like what you said is you for the last 8 years you've seen a consistent 2 to 3% growth, and other than in the vacation spots or lakefront property, have you seen a dip in that, or are you saying that if we have some kind of an economic downturn, you might see a big dip or a big shift in those?
Right. We have not seen a dip yet. Back in 2007, 8, and 9, that's what got hurt the worst.
Gotcha. Okay.
Was the secondary type properties. No, at this point, in fact, we had to reschedule this podcast because I went to show a property that's not even on the market this morning, and I had to call Josh and say, I need to go sign some contracts. We need to change the date or the time of this podcast. It's still moving very quickly. It doesn't. I would say average days on market now is about 15 to 30. There's still a pretty low inventory. We're still getting good solid deals. In the next 12 to 24 months, everybody has their own little crystal ball. I see that it's going to flatten for us. I don't think it's going to really go down. I think days on market is going to lengthen out, but I really don't see our prices declining much. So.
Got it. Interesting. No, I mean, honestly, like everybody I talk to, like they have their own little crystal ball, but, I was just in that conference that I was at, Grant Cardone was at, and he just swears up and down that we're not going to see this price drop at all in real estate. I don't really know exactly where I completely stand on it. I just know that we are not going to see 2008 all over again in real estate. You might see it in a different sector. You may see it in the debt, in debt. You may see it in college debt. You may see it in some other thing that is disruptive. But real estate is just, there's too many people still want to buy a house and too many people that need a house and not enough inventory. So it doesn't really matter. Supply and demand is going to win out every single time. So what about rents? What's the typical rent in your neighborhood for your price points and square footage and all that kind of good stuff?
Our median home prices are in that 130 to 155 range. If you buy a single family ranch style house for $135,000, it's going to rent for about $1,200 a month, $1,200 to $1,300 a month, right around it's close to the 1% rule. The only thing that hurts us is we have extremely high real estate taxes, so that can definitely hurt your cash flow. And it's very different from municipality to municipality. So the city of Green Bay could be a pretty decent buy, and you go 2 blocks into one of the suburbs and your taxes just went up significantly. So, just to give you an idea, an average ranch, $135,000 ranch house is about $2,500 to $2,700 a year in tax.
Okay, so that's not too high. That may be higher than some places, but that's just a hair higher than where we're at here in Indiana. You go to Illinois, and it could be 3 or 4 times that.
Right.
So you're definitely not on the high end, but I would say you're probably a little bit higher than what the low end says as far as taxes go. So when you're saying $130,000 house, is that how much you're into these properties, or?
No, that's a retail value.
Okay, gotcha. So you're into these properties maybe 70, 80, 90, 100 maybe, and you're renting them out for $1,250.
Yeah. Yeah, if I'm flipping a house, I will not, because of what I went through in 2007, 8, 9, I will not go over 65% of ARV minus repairs. A lot of my competition is going up to 70, 75, even 80% of ARV, and I won't do it. I'm not going back to what I had. Again, if I'm going to hold a property long-term for rent, it's going to be something that I've structured a seller finance or some kind of creative structure where I'm into it for very little money out of my pocket. So my ROI in most of these cases is infinite,
right?
Because of the structure.
Sure.
So I don't necessarily need to have as much equity, depending on how I structured the deal.
And so, what did you see in 2008 happen in your market? So those $130,000 houses, how much were they in 2006? How much were they in 2008? What did they rent for in 2007? And then maybe what happened in 2010 as far as rents?
I would say we had a decline in pricing by no more than 10% in most of our local markets. Rents never really declined because more people were losing their homes. They still had to go somewhere to live. So they stayed level for probably 2007 to 2008, 9, 10. And since then, rents have gone up, but I don't think you're really more than a 5 to 10% a year. Well, not 10%, 5% a year on rent at the most in your single families.
Interesting. You know? So you're saying, so right now that same $130,000 house, how much could I have picked that up for in 2006?
About 105.
So what about 2009?
2009, there was still a lot of inventory, foreclosures. I think we were buying those we were buying distress, so we were buying for a lot less.
What was the retail?
About 105 to 110. It was very flat.
So it really, you didn't even see a bottom you didn't even see retail go down from 2006 to 2009, which that's a little unusual, just so the people that are listening to this podcast know. Mm-hmm. But just so you know, there are markets around the country that's the case. So, right. You know, I tell people that all the time, like the boring markets for cash flow, like the Midwest, like the Southeast has been, although there's been a lot of appreciation in the Southeast lately. Like that's how it's always been. It's always been that way. So, you know, so you're saying in 2006, the houses were trading for 105. In 2009, those same houses were selling for 105. And now since 2008, 2009, they've kind of gradually risen to about $130,000 houses. So very gradual, steady market. And then rents really didn't get hurt, probably because, you know, you had more people coming into the space to rent, but they may not have had enough income to take on an increase, and there's not really a ton of population to push that demand. But in my market, you know, and we've said this plenty of times. In our market, for instance, there was a lot more demand for rents, you know, for once the downturn happened. So our rents actually went up. Our rents probably went up $100 in a 1 year period of time when the market crashed in Northwest Indiana. And honestly, they've continued to rise. We're probably $200 more per rent now than we were in 2009 when they already went up. So we're probably $300 more than they were in 2006 for the exact same house. So, and we're not in a very volatile market, really. Like, so our average house price in Lake County, Indiana, I think is $169 or something like that. Today, and in 2006 it was right about the same number. It was right about 169, and it went down to like 158 or something like that during the downturn, and it's kind of come back up. Yeah, we have some more high end stuff than we had before then, but as far as averages goes, that's kind of where we're at. So, well,
and even with our $150,000 to $200,000 price point, rents are not going up incremental. So if we get over that 150 on a rental, you might be getting $1,400 for rent, and a $200,000 house might bring $1,500 for rent.
Yeah.
That's really kind of the sweet spot is 150 and below.
Yeah, and that's probably nationwide. That I see that trend all over the place. There's kind of like a curve where it makes a lot more sense, and you want to be actually where the curve is moving. You don't really want to be like in the war zone neighborhoods, but you also don't really want to be up here. There's a curve where it makes sense and doesn't make sense to be at for rentals, and I do love rentals. So you did talk about, and now I'm kind of putting you on the spot here now, but you did talk about some vacation type areas or lakes or whatever, is there any kind of vacation rental business up that way? Because I own 7 vacation rentals, and I love that business for what I do.
Well, I got a deal for you right now if you want. No, it's actually.
Can I get seller finance?
Yes.
Capital.
We'll talk afterwards.
All right, let's do it.
No, there is a market for it. The problem, I think, to try and cash flow a seasonal rental is tough, because we've got May until the end of August is when most people are coming to the Northwoods or coming to these lakefront properties. And then in the winter months, yes, there's some winter recreation, but you don't get the volume of people coming in, and the price per night on a vacation rental is about half. So I've got 2 waterfront properties that I'm dealing on this week that we may or may not put together. We analyze them in both ways. If we just flip them, or if we're going to hold them and try and vacation rental them, and they may bring in a really nice price for that 3 or 4 months out of the year, but it still doesn't cover what we would want to truly get for a cash flow.
Yeah.
So there's opportunity, but it's not. I don't think it's as big an opportunity as what most would be excited about.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, even in my market, I have about a 2-month lull. I don't have I probably have 8 really good months, 2 decent months, and then 2 months that probably actually might even have negative cash flow on. We still normally get 1 or 2 renters in there, and actually we've been lucky the last couple of years. During those times of year, sometimes we have people that come in and rent it for the whole month, or they're kind of like traveling nurses or something that we'll put in the properties that work. But that's because we're right in the crossroads of America right here by Chicago, so we kind of have a population on our side as well too. So just figured I'd ask.
I don't know very many people that are wanting to vacation to central Wisconsin in January. So
nope. Well, again, like my vacation rentals are used for a lot more than just vacation rentals. They're used for just people traveling.
Sure.
I mean, the way I look at it is I'm competing with the hotels. If I can offer better value than a hotel, and there's enough people to see what I'm doing and enough demand, then they're going to stay rented anyway. Yeah. So anyways, I just figured I'd ask because you had mentioned that. That's good.
Well, and I'll point out real quick, Tom, like this deal I'm working on this week, it's on the Bay of Green Bay. It's waterfront. It's beautiful. I'm negotiating this deal with the seller based on a monthly rental. So if I do choose to use it as a vacation rental, obviously my income will go up pretty good. But he's willing to consider holding paper at 8%. And if I can cash flow it at that based on a monthly rental rate, then I'll probably do the deal. And I probably will use it as a vacation rental. But and we have friends of ours in Nashville, and they've got quite a few that are part of our other mastermind. And they've got quite a few that new construction builds that they're turning into, Airbnb or whatever. Now Nashville is trying to put in rules and regulations in place and shut them all down. Mm-hmm. So all the people that are building or buying these properties based on that large or larger income, one rule change with the city, and you're now in a very, very bad position.
No, absolutely. You definitely want to have a plan B when it comes to doing any of those kind of things. So yeah, and you're exactly right. I don't have any of mine that wouldn't cash flow like regularly, like $250, $350 a month if it was just a regular rental versus what it is now. So that's the great luxury of being in a market the way like we're in, where I'm all into property sometimes $125,000 and I'm getting $250 a night for vacation rentals. It's not really normally like it. You'd have to go spend like $200,000 or $300,000 for that type of place. So
yep.
Man, that was a great conversation. Love it. All right, so we're going to have to wrap this up, though. That was a really good conversation about the market and market trends and everything, about boring markets specifically, but it's good stuff. So we got to wrap this up. We got 2 more questions that I'm going to be asking you, Derek. These are questions that we ask every single person that we get on these interviews. Very interested to hear what everybody's answers are. They're all different, so I'm excited to hear what you had to say. So good success to us means a lot. A couple of people that are in our networks, like Mo, he very much represents what good success is all about. For us, it comes from the Bible. Joshua 1:8 talks about the quality of the success as opposed to the quantity. In this podcast, we've also had conversations about this whole concept as well. So for you, when you hear the term good success, what's the first thing that comes to your mind? What do you think about when you hear that term?
For me, it's quality of life. versus, a lot of people want to put a dollar amount or monetary amount on success. I learned the hard way, essentially because of what we went through. I missed the first 3 or 4 years of my firstborn, daughter's life because I was working. And now I would much rather make less money and have more time with my family, and I consider that successful. The other side of that, I would say, is if you truly get out of bed in the morning to help people, as I mentioned earlier, the more I help and the more I use my gifts to help people, by default, I will make more money. But I know that I can lay my head on the pillow at night and truly know that I helped everybody I could, or every lead that came in, or everybody that asked me a question. Because 90% of the time, or 95% of the time, when I talk to somebody, a lead comes in, I'm not going to get that deal. But I still want to leave them something of value. It may just be just an offer of call me if you ever have a question or anything like that. And that's where myself and my business partner, we've got that instilled in our values, and that's how we run our business.
Love it. Awesome
stuff.
Yeah,
I'm glad that you said that about basically having the right kind of success is kind of what we always kind of revert back to. Good success is the right kind of success. And the right kind of success is different for every single person.
Right.
So for him, the right kind of success or good success is making less money possibly, but having more time with his family and more, time to be able to do what he thinks God's put him on this earth to do. And I appreciate everybody's talks and everybody's responses to that good success.
Yeah, absolutely. And he actually also centered it around people as opposed to, money or physical possessions. So great stuff. All right. So we got one more thing for you. Before we let you go off this podcast, it's been a great interview. We definitely appreciate you being on the show here and sharing everything that you have. You got to leave the audience with one thing. So whether it's a quote, a thought, piece of advice, a book that you enjoy reading, one thing that you got to leave the audience with, what would that be?
Well, I'm greedy, so I'm going to leave them with two things. My favorite quote, and I don't know if I came up with it or somebody else, is you only lose in life when you quit trying. And that came from everything, when we went through our turmoil. If we would have given up like 98% of everyone else, we wouldn't be able to help people today. The last thing I want to leave them with is people come through my RIA, they come through our trainings or whatever we're involved in, and they're always asking, how do you put these deals together? How can you creatively structure these deals? I think one of the biggest mistakes that most people make is, instead of going and spending millions of dollars on books and tapes and stuff, is go learn how to negotiate. First and foremost, go learn how to talk to people. Because all we do is have conversations. And if you know how to have conversations properly, the rest falls into place. So the best book I ever, found to utilize that was Pitch Anything by Orrin Claff. And that book, I've probably listened to it on Audible. I try to listen to it at least once every quarter, but I've probably listened to that book 30 times. And it's just, it enabled me to figure out what I was saying to people and how I was doing it, and what the turning point in every conversation is, right? Because there's always that, like with the farmer, there was that one turning point, and I can now key in on it, was that one word he said, and I was able to steer that conversation into a deal. So.
Awesome. Good stuff.
Communication and negotiation. Learning how to talk to people. I don't think you've read that book. I haven't read that book. So Pitch Anything. And who did you say the author was?
Orrin Claff.
Gotcha.
Oren Klaff is his last name.
Okay. Awesome.
Very, very good.
I want to make sure that the audience gets that in case they want to go read that book. Well, Derek, we definitely appreciate you being on the show. Man, that was a really good conversations that we had. Awesome interview, and appreciate you being on. We look forward to having you back and possibly seeing you at the Good Success Mastermind at some point.
Can I wear my hat? Can I bring my hat?
You know what? If you come to the Mastermind, you can wear your hat for one day.
Well, there's other people that have Dallas Cowboys hats or have, their hats. So, yeah, trust me. I don't hold it against you.
You can wear it. Well, awesome stuff, Derek. We appreciate you being on. We look forward to having you back soon.
Wait a second. Before we leave, I was going to skip over this, but since he decided to bring it back up, I kind of want to just show the audience. Maybe I'm not sure if we can get this or not.
4.
I'm not really sure. Can we zoom in on that?
9 and 4. 9 and 4.
Can't see it. Doesn't show up at all. It's really blurry.
So right now it looks like the Bears are what does that say, Josh?
9-4,
and the Packers
are 5-7.
Oh,
they're under
man,
500. Wow, a couple games.
And I will admit to that, but I will ask you this: Who won their first match this year? The first game, Packers or Bears? And who was only playing on one good leg?
Man.
Oh, that's right. That was Aaron Rodgers.
That's why I told you I wasn't gonna go after that. The friendly wager. So because they always have our number for some reason. But all right, awesome stuff. Well, Derek, thank you for being on. And that's gonna do it for today's episode. We appreciate you.
Can I leave my contact information real quick?
Oh yes, I am so. You didn't remind me this time.
I was getting ready to,
I forgot.
Josh.
I was getting into it. Contact info. Derek, leave us some contact info if somebody wants to reach out to you.
My phone number, which I do answer the phone, is area code 715-574-4666. And my email address is my first name, Derek, DEREK, @avidtrader.com. And that's spelled out AVEDTRADER.com.
Awesome stuff. And then
do you have
what about
any other way for people to connect with you on social media or anything like that as well, or you just
you can always look me up on Facebook, LinkedIn, all the normal channels. Last name Dombeck, DOMBECK, Derek Dombeck.
Very cool. All right, Tom's writing in big letters. I need to remember this. So.
Thanks.
I think this is like the third episode in a row that I've had to like either ask the person myself or I've had to remind you.
And I have it written down here too, so it's man, we're just excited about the episode. All right, that's gonna do it for today's episode. We appreciate you jumping on. If you haven't already, make sure you have subscribed to the Good Success Podcast and leave a review on Apple Podcasts if you would do us a favor. 5 stars would be amazing, and let us know what you think about these episodes. And then the Good Success Mastermind, which we talked about a couple times here, you can go to goodsuccess.com/mastermind to learn more about that. Fill out the application there, and then you will get on a phone call with either myself or Tom, and then we'll hopefully see you either February, May, during those events. The next event is February 4 through 8 in Dallas, Texas at Quest Trust Company's office down there. So we're very excited about that.
We're going to have a little extra talk about IRAs and the self-directed IRA. If you don't know about it, you've got to be at the mastermind and you've got to learn about self-directed IRAs. It is the one account that every rich person has. If you want to act like and do the things that successful people do, you've got to know what it is that they do. And one of those things is self-directed IRAs. I'm going to tell you, it is absolutely amazing how you can basically live tax-free if you really know how to use and direct your own individual retirement accounts. So we have a whole little extra talk about IRAs, and we'll be at Quest IRA, so there'll be a lot more emphasis on that.
Yeah, we'll have nobody better than Quincy Long to talk about it.
You got it. And Quincy will be there himself, the owner of Quest IRA, who's in our mastermind. And we're going to give him the stage for a whole extra time period, other than his mastermind slot, to be able to talk about IRAs, and we're going to have a panel about it. So just keep that in mind. If you need to be there, if you need to learn about IRAs.
Great stuff. So goodsuccess.com/mastermind is where you can learn more about it and then fill out the application there. And then the ATK book, this is going away soon. Make sure you pick this up for free. All you got to do is cover shipping and handling costs, written by Tom Olson himself, and he's paying for the book. So make sure you take advantage of that. atkbook.com is where you can get that, and then we'll ship that out to you. Community Go Giver tickets are pre-sale early bird pricing going on right now. Save a couple $100 and go check it out. We've been talking about communities in the market and everything, and how you can encourage and build your community as opposed to just trying to make money in real estate. So that's what we're focused on at the Community Go Giver event. CommunityGoGiver.com is where you can buy the tickets there. That's going to do it for today's episode. We appreciate you jumping on. And remember to be a conduit, not a bucket.
Work to have to give.
Catch you guys on the next one.